Hey everyone, time for some fun stuff. So the number one thing that everyone says is the main reason that my big Pokemon Reboot theory is crap is because Pokemon can't reboot. Because money, money, money. Capitalism. Marketing. This rebuttal has mostly been reserved to my comment sections as well as various forums that bring up the theory, so I was planning on waiting until part 3 to discuss why a reboot would actually help with the money making tremendously. But just recently, ProtoMario, fellow YouTuber, made the classic theory debunked video about it. Firstly, a disclaimer, as he says in his video, also, we are not at all hating on each other. A few years back, we actually worked together a good number of times, helped each other out. So his video isn't hate, my video isn't hate, we just have a bit of a disagreement here, and since he's tried to debunk my theory, I have the right to respond, essentially. And since his argument follows the majority of dissenting comments that I find, I figured I might as well make a reply video. So firstly, he goes through the, no, it won't end because that would be stupid. And yes, that would be crazy stupid. The stupidest thing imaginable, which is why I know for a fact Pokemon will not end, but as the theory goes, this is the end of an era, and a new era of Pokemon will begin. A reboot. Either a hard reboot or another soft one. And of course, capitalism and marketing play a major factor in the decision-making of Pokemon. It's a money machine. Could you think of all the money they would lose from a game going back to the vastly most sold Pokemon game of all time? Did you see what I did there? If you look at the sales of Pokemon games, they have always been on the decline. You have the Gen 1 games, which sold nearly 50 million copies, then Gen 2 with nearly 30 million, then Gen 3 with 22, and then it went up a bit to 25, but then 15, and then 8, 15 again. But Lockstin, what about the anime, the card game, and the manga? Well, it's the same story there too. In fact, let's just group everything up into one big bulk. Let's look at the total amount of money generated by the Pokemon brand as a whole, year by year, and it shows the exact same trend, adjusting for inflation, of course. Yeah. Not great. Spiking in the early days, and overall sinking ever since. With the exception of a jump this year, though, that's exclusively thanks to the success of Pokemon Go, which has already had its spike and is already a shadow of its former self. In fact, come to think of it, why was Pokemon Go so successful? Honestly, as a game, it kind of sucks. If you had the same game but with non-Pokemon creatures, it would be criticized as garbage. Well, it played on nostalgia by being about Gen 1 Pokemon exclusively. People with their nostalgia goggles on. Whether you find them irritating or not, Gen 1ers, or people who left Pokemon after the first or second generation, still form the bulk of people who have played Pokemon. And you could argue that this nostalgia proves nothing, because Fire Red and Leaf Green didn't sell all that crazy. But then I'd counter-argue, because that game came out too soon. Being 20 years later rather than 6, most of the people who played the first generation of Pokemon as kids are now young adults and can buy stuff with their own money that they get from their jobs, no longer reliant upon the money of their parents. And you know just how much 90s and early 2000s nostalgia is booming right now because of all that, right? And maybe I'm an outlier here, but everyone I've met in person through Pokemon Go all said the same thing. Pokemon Go is awesome! I stopped playing Pokemon after Generation 1 or 2 or 3, because the designs of Pokemon were getting dumber. And the game didn't grow up with me. And no matter what your opinion is on that statement, the fact is that people like that form a massive chunk of the market right now. Meaning, appealing to them, specifically, makes 100% sense. And how would you appeal to them if their main drawback is that the current Pokemon designs are silly and the gameplay and story are too childlike? Well, maybe by reworking the gameplay and designs, and story, and everything. A reboot. I'm sure you all know how many people, especially Gen 1ers, have thought how awesome it would be to have this huge, sprawling, open-world environment to catch and train Pokemon in. a vaguely more action-based game with console-level graphics on the Nintendo NX. And that will happen eventually, at least Pokemon on the NX will, because every single patent and rumor about the NX, and every little bit of evidence about it is all pointing to it being a console handheld hybrid, two opposite worlds coming together. It all comes together. Do you know just how many consoles a Pokemon game like that would sell? Especially on the nostalgia factor alone. Experience Kanto like you've never seen it before. No borders, bigger than Skyrim, open world, level scaling wild Pokemon, side quests, and mainly Kanto and Johto Pokemon just to ease people into it. Maybe redesign and retype some of them, update them. Kind of like what Alola forms are, but there could be Kanto forms of all the newer Pokemon. Like, at its core, the game is a Kanto remake, but it is so vastly different that you can't even call it the same game anymore. At that point, it would be a reboot. But no, that would be too risky. Nintendo always plays it safe, especially with their big franchises. You know, except for Metroid going from 2D to first-person shooter, Pikmin going from 3D to 2D, Zelda from a mostly linear action-adventure game to an open-world action RPG, and the supposed Mario game Miyamoto has been quoted as saying will be unlike any other Mario game in the past and will be vastly different. So Nintendo's first and third biggest franchises are already experiencing this. Great changes. So what's keeping their second biggest from doing it? Nintendo has been down in the dumps lately. Playing it safe has not worked for them. So maybe they are finally listening. At least a little bit. Kinda. And changing the Zelda formula, changing the Mario formula, and perhaps even changing the Pokemon formula after celebrating the 20th anniversary. All in hopes that it will get their fans that have left back. And many fans who have since left, whether you consider them true fans or not, all say that the reason they leave is because the series has stagnated. It's not adding much. Every game is get Pokemon, fight the bad teams, gym badges. Every game until Sun and Moon, that is. Sun and Moon may itself be the reboot, or at least a taste of what is to come, like with the idea of redesigning Pokemon, that is. The Kanto forms in a rebooted Pokemon. Alola forms are a taste test. Get people used to the idea. In fact, the card game is currently experiencing this big nostalgia factor right now too. In Japan, and soon the States, the recent card expansion is made of cards of Pokemon old and new, but all in the art style of the original cards, playing on nostalgia. Also the anime, Pokemon Origins, did phenomenal! And why? The more mature narrative. Not held back by annoying children characters that the little kids watching can relate to. And episodes that seriously deal with death and the real crime of Team Rocket. It also played on nostalgia, being mainly Gen 1 Pokemon, and it did phenomenal because of it. Are you noticing a trend? As you all say, capitalism and marketing will always be the most important thing to Pokemon. And this is why a more mature reboot that caters to young adults who played Gen 1 and 2 is very likely. And all of this alchemy stuff has been becoming more prevalent as the generations go on, because over time the Pokemon Company has been realizing that. The Sun and Moon character designs already look much older than what they used to, and they've been quoted as saying that that's because they are trying to appeal to an older audience. In the end, though, will Pokemon reboot? I have no idea. It makes perfect sense in the lore, it makes perfect sense in marketing and capitalism, but Nintendo has made some pretty stupid mistakes in the past. Not rebooting in the near future would be one of those mistakes. And one more thing specifically to ProtoMario, I am glad that you focused on just the marketing side and mentioned that the alchemy stuff is all good, because I agree. The alchemy stuff within the lore, I'm mostly convinced is all fact with this theory. But it's the application of that alchemy stuff within the lore to the reset theory that is, well, a theory. Just another stupid fan theory on the internet. Thanks for watching, and thanks for being awesome. Be sure to check out this playlist to catch up on all of this alchemy stuff I'm referring to, and be sure to follow me on Twitter for updates and fun discussions. A few non-Pokemon videos are coming in the near future, but there's also plenty of Pokemon stuff in the near future. This project is crazy huge, and I'm excited for it. Are you? Are you excited enough to support me by checking out IndieBox? Do you like indie games? I do, but I'm also a collector and love having physical copies of stuff, and most indie games are sold digital only. That is, until IndieBox. They sell indie games with boxes. And not just the boxes, but even manuals. That's definitely something to cater to collectors too. And awesome little fun bits of merchandise. They also all come with Steam keys, so you still get the game along with all the cool stuff. Sometimes they'll even come with a fancy little flash drive or a game disc with all the files on it. You can subscribe for monthly surprise indie boxes or purchase previous boxes. Be sure to use the link in the description to let them know that I sent you. And either way, you have yourself an awesome day. You stay awesome.